A lot of couples, young couples, people that we have come across have asked us, how did we know that we were the one? So, this is the episode. This is the one you're going to watch. If you're dating someone or you see marriage in your future, this is the one that you
Yep,
want to watch.
that's right.
So, this is part two. If you didn't catch part one, go back and catch up
Part
on
one
how
is
we
great.
met. You
Yep.
need to know how it all began
And
because it's important.
it's not what you think. You're gonna
It's definitely not
it's
what
not
you
what you think,
think.
but it's very important. It's cool.
Okay,
All right, part
so
two.
we're gonna pick up on 2007
Yeah.
in the summer. We just finished that semester of school. Here's summer of 2007.
Yeah.
We're starting to like each other. We're starting to kiss each other. All the things, not all the things. That sounds weird.
Yeah, not all the things. Not all
Just
the things. We were
kissing.
just hanging out all the
But
time.
starting to like each
Yeah.
other. You go home to Florida for the summer to work an internship at
Yeah.
your church.
Which let me say this real quick. That summer was weird because we were in college and we stayed after a few extra weeks after
Yeah.
the college season was over because we were part of like a band, and the band we were doing like a
It's like the youth
conference. It
conference.
was like a conference or
Yeah.
something like that week. So we got a chance to be a part of that and be like and being all that stuff. And we were hanging out a lot. But you hurt my feelings that summer
Oh, yeah. I remember that part.
because we started crushing on each other. Started
did.
liking. I was liking you. I was liking some other people too at the same time. But
You just brushed over that very quickly.
yes, we weren't dating, so my options were
I
mad
know,
open.
but
So
again,
relax.
we said this in the last episode. Boys govern themselves differently
Hmm.
than girls do.
Okay.
And girls would never talk to multiple boys because if we did, then there's two-letter words for that.
Ho?
Yes.
What's the? Oh,
I was just trying, but it's
yes.
not that we are. It's
Santa
just
loves
we do not. Oh yeah,
Go ahead.
Santa. But we do not function that way, but boys do. So, anyways,
Right.
we talked about that in the other episode. Going forward. So, we were in a rehearsal and we had started crushing on each other, started liking each other. And I went to say goodbye to everyone. And I literally said goodbye to everyone on the stage
Yeah.
except you.
That's crazy, and I had to play it off. Yo, this is messed up that she did this to me. First of all, but which is weird for me to say that you hurt my feelings.
It is weird. But
But
I was so nervous. I picked such bad boys
yeah,
before.
well,
And not bad boys in like he was a hot bad boy, as in like you're just not a good pick.
yeah,
And so I really did not trust myself when I started liking you. I didn't trust that you were a good pick.
yeah,
I
and
was nervous of people's feedback.
it's wild how much we realize over the years that you care so much about what people think
Yep, I do.
that it literally will paralyze you, which
It's
is
true.
wild. And literally was the guy that you were crushing on, the guy that you were liking, and you didn't know what other people would think about you liking me. So you gave me the cold shoulder
Yeah.
because
To be fair, I was a third year at a 2-year school. So I was like in this honors program, and you were a first semester. That it was like a no-no. Like, we don't date first semester people. Like, you shouldn't.
okay.
So just to be fair, there was like all this context around it. Anyways, I did hurt your feelings, and I'm so sorry. So you go home for
Let's
the
make this go
summer.
on record.
Oh my
Here we
Lord.
go. 17 years later, I finally get apology from.
You act like I've never said I'm sorry. I said sorry
I
as
don't
soon as you
recall.
told me I hurt your
I
feelings.
don't recall. It
Anyways,
wasn't
we
on
got to
record
keep it
like this.
moving. So that summer, you go home. We hung out. You go to Florida to be an intern at your church.
You want me to tell the story?
Go ahead, go
Because you
for
mad
it.
struggling with the story. I know you guys. I know you rushing and stuff like that. But relax, we chilling. Yes, all that part was right.
Thank you. I was
we were
right.
just that was around the time too when you guys remember the cell phone times where it was free after 9 and mobile to mobile, all that stuff, and we had to pay for minutes. All the Gen Zers like, what? You guys had to pay for minutes? Yes, we had 400 minutes a month. Right,
So
I
true.
did with T-Mobile at that time, which I think I still owed them a lot of money.
No, you don't.
I paid it off.
Yeah.
We paid it off. Okay, so there's that. So yeah, we went. We kind of just it was summer break, so we're like, yo, see you in 2 months.
Right.
But we can
And
still
then
text, we
I
can still
had
talk,
all
call.
this great idea of like you would come back to school in August. We would be that cute new couple. I'd be graduated, doing whatever I'm doing, but like we would start off the year and we'd be official.
That's what you had in your mind.
That's what I had
I
in my
went
mind.
back home thinking like maybe I could reconcile some stuff with my ex-girlfriend because she was back home too. We're gonna see what's gonna happen. Maybe what you're long distance, so there's gonna be no conflict there. I'm just gonna be honest with you. That was just what was in my
That
mind.
is
Which is
disgusting.
crazy that we were in Bible college around this time where people always think like Bible college has all these rules, things like that. But that stuff doesn't work because at the end of the day, God looks at the heart. And so we can do all these things on the outside to try to pump fake people. But at the end of the day, in my head and in my heart, I was like, man, I'm a young guy. I'm 19. I'm like, I'm not really sure. You know, I do love the Lord. I do feel called to ministry. And I knew that. I knew that. But at the end of the day, my mind and my young teenage cocky head was getting in the way. So I'm like, us guys, sometimes it's flattering when multiple girls are attracted to you. And we don't know how to literally control it sometimes.
That's fair.
That's the true thing. And it's not all guys. I get it. Some guys are like, man, I know how to control myself. You're a liar, but that's fine. Okay. I'm not going to judge you. Right. But for me, I'm 19 at the time. My ex girlfriend broke up with me over the phone. We started hanging out. We went on that one, date, which go back to part one and go back and watch that. We'll tell you the whole story. That summer, I remember I went back home. I'm like, okay, let's see what happens. I stayed in contact with you. I stayed in contact with a few girls. I'm not going to
We
be.
talked a lot that summer too, so I don't know how you're talking to everybody else.
That was the
But
time
like we
where
were talking,
T-Mobile was like, yo, you owe us a lot of money.
that's when
And I
you
was
ran the
like,
bill
I was
up.
trying to call everybody after 9 o'clock because the minutes were racking up. That was just the truth. But at the end of the day, for me, I just saw it as my option. My options were just open. So to me, like I
That's
wasn't
fair.
crossing any lines. I wasn't like lying or anything like that. It was,
You sure weren't telling nobody, but
I wasn't,
whatever.
but because to me, I'm like, okay, here's a thought. And this is what I don't know. To me, I'm like, should I tell? Like when I'm 19 and I'm talking to a few girls at that time, should I tell all the girls that I'm talking to? No, I'm like, I don't owe you nothing. We weren't committed or anything like that. I'm just a free agent.
Okay, we're not arguing this whole thing. The point is our story. Let's move on.
Oh,
Because you like
so we
this
need
is
a
a whole
segue
different
then. There's
conversation.
a whole nother
This is a
episode.
whole different episode of how men and boys act when they're dating and how women or girls act when they're dating. So that's a
Okay,
whole
that's
different
crazy.
conversation.
Okay, make a note of that. Can you guys make a note of that? Those of you guys that are
We'll come
listening.
back to
Let me
this.
actually take a
People
moment.
are here to find out how we knew if we were the one or not.
Okay, let me pause right now and say, hey, if you guys are enjoying these videos and you like these conversations, you like this podcast, whatever it is, maybe hit like. Hit like is really cool. You don't have to subscribe. I get it. Subscribing is a really big commitment. I hold back my subscribes because I'm like, man, I don't even want people stuff all over my feed all the time. So I get it. We hold back on our subscribes. But hey, if you are enjoying these conversations, if you feel like it's bringing value to you, I want to ask you if you wouldn't mind just smashing that like button and just showing
It's
us
for
that you
free.
like it. It's for
It's
free.
free. And
Don't
it
hold
just
back on your likes.
that's
And
it.
here's the cool thing about hitting like is that the algorithm says like, okay, somebody likes this video. Let's suggest it to some other people that may like this conversation too as well. So that's how you can help us and support us. And so if you're listening on podcast, Apple, things like that, write us a review. That's what helps us too as well. So let's go back to it. So that summer we were just kind of chilling, talking over the phone. I was actually on this choir tour. I got a chance to see you on that
Oh,
choir tour
that's
that summer,
right. My
which
dad
was
drove
really cool.
us to go see you in
I was in Indiana. I
Kentucky.
was playing bass, had my little afro, guys. And, I was
Yep.
looking all funny and stuff like that. And I remember calling you early that fall before the school semester started back
Mhm.
up when we were really liking each other. We had
Yep.
plans, like, because I knew in my head, I was like, yo, I think she could be the one that might jump into that was around MySpace time too. So you guys know MySpace, like it was a statement when you would put someone as your number one or your number two, you know what I mean? And so I remember thinking like, yo, she might move up to number 2 or 3 on the MySpace. But we really started liking each other. Some of the other girls, I honestly, like a few of them, I just stopped calling,
Yeah.
stopped talking. There's one that I remember specifically that I was like, man, I just stopped calling her, which I did call her many years later saying like, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
That was messed up. Like, guys, let's not be a bunch of douchebags. Like legit. I called her and I was like, man, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I was a kid. I was childish. I was immature.
You're
And
a
I should have,
jerk.
I
Yeah.
was a jerk and I shouldn't have done that. I was a kid. I was 19. I didn't know how to handle all this attention from girls at that time.
Sure.
Like, you know what I mean? But Dan Lee was the one that rose up to the top, and we had in our mind that, yo, we're
This
gonna
could
be
be
that
something
we're gonna
serious.
be that couple,
Yeah.
go back to the college and stuff like that. It's gonna be like, oh my gosh, Pierre and Danny Lee, or Pete and Danny, or Pete or Petey, because
Oh
I had
my
a
gosh,
bunch of
you had
names.
a bunch of names.
I still do have a bunch of names. Well,
It's
you know,
true.
like when you're wanted in different countries.
Guys, he's not wanted in different countries,
countries.
countries.
Pedro.
You are
Um,
wanted in different companies.
yeah. So I remember calling you that August saying, I'm not coming back.
Yep. Yep, you did. And so you had to come get all your stuff because you had left stuff up there for when you came back for the fall semester, and now you were not coming back to school. You were going to stay in Florida, take a job,
Hmm.
continue school in Florida, but you were not coming back to Ohio. And at that point, I was also realizing the thing that I wanted to do next was cosmetology school, and that I couldn't afford to do it in Ohio either. So I was
Yeah.
actually moving back to Indiana.
Yeah. That's wild.
It was wild. I remember this pivotal moment when I went to eat. It was actually Olive Garden. I went to eat with my mentor at the time in college, and I told her like, "Oh, Pierre's not coming back. I'm moving to Indiana. Like, I just told him, stop calling me." I don't remember if this was before me and
Right.
you had that
It was
conversation or
before.
not. It was.
It was
So I
before.
kind of told her what I was going to talk to you about. And I
Yeah.
was like, I'm just going to tell him like it's not worth it. We weren't in love at that point. We just
Right.
liked each other.
Yeah.
Um and I remember her being so blunt with me. Like this conversation sticks with me probably for the rest of my life. She straight looked at me over the Alfredo sauce and breadsticks and
Yeah.
salad, and she was like, "You're a freaking idiot."
Yeah.
And I was like, "Huh?" She was like, "You're a freaking idiot." She
Right.
was like, "You had this guy that I had dated at the beginning of my Bible college career." And she was like, "He was this, he was that, he was terrible, he was a liar, he was this, and you loved him."
Yeah.
And she was like, "And now you have this guy standing in front of you that's everything you've ever prayed for or wanted, and you just don't know." She was
Hmm.
like, "You're an idiot." And I remember just being so like shook. I'd never had someone
Right.
talk to me so
So
bluntly,
blunt,
like,
straight talk.
so straight talk. That was the probably the first time that I ever had a leader give me straight talk, and I am forever grateful for that conversation. It did change my life. I
Yeah.
did still try to tell you, "Stop talking to me,"
Well,
but
so fast forward, I come back up to the
get all your
college
stuff.
to get all my stuff.
Yeah,
And to honestly, actually what it was is the friend that I came up to the school with,
yeah.
she was driving back. She was legit a friend, and she was like one of my high school friends, and both her and I was going to the same college. And she was like, well, I'm still going back, can you drive me up there, drive up with me? So I was like, sure, it works out perfect. I jumped in the car with her, drove her up there. We took some crazy detours because she lost track of the map. And I fell asleep and I woke up. I was like, oh my God, where are we going? We're heading the wrong way. That was the last time I ever let a woman drive me. So there's that.
Oh
Um,
my gosh, it's literally true.
there's a little bit of truth behind that.
That is there is.
Yeah. So, anyways, I go back to the college for that first week to get my stuff. You already graduated, so
Mhm. I was
you're
done.
planning on going back to Indiana.
Yeah.
I'm going up to just get my bass guitar, to get a few stuff, jump on a flight, and go back. So we go out, y'all, and we
That
get
week, first of all, that week felt like some kind of like teenage movie
yeah,
of like 1 week with this boy that you like, and you may never see him again.
yeah,
Like that's what was playing in my head of like, you get one more week to spend with him and you will probably never see him
yeah.
again.
So I flew out or I drove out. Of course, we had a bunch of makeout sessions. All we did was just
Babe,
kiss and make out.
oh my
It's
word.
just like that's just what
That
we
was just
did.
really it. It was
That's just
literally just kissing. So for all y'all young people, it was literally just kissing.
straight kissing.
That's it.
Period. That's
In
all
a
it was.
car, that's it.
All right,
Nothing
hard line.
else.
All right, hard
Hard
line.
line, yes.
Yeah, lots of steam in it, but a bunch of kissing, right? But I remember we went out to dinner one night. It could
TGI
have,
Fridays.
yeah, it was
It was
Fridays.
Fridays.
It was before I flew out,
Yep.
and we went and grabbed dinner, and it was super sad. I remember that night. We ate like whatever. We hung out. We talked, and we just talked about like what this could look like with me going back to Florida and you going back to Indiana.
And I told you, nothing will bring you to Indiana. Nothing will bring me to Florida. So I just think we just let it be what it was, and that's it.
Yeah,
Like I just didn't think it was worth the heartbreak of why am I emotional right now? Of leaving someone that I liked so much, like, it's okay, like, it's only gonna make us more heartbroken if we try to do this long distance. So I really felt like I was saying goodbye to you at that moment.
Yeah, you
I
were.
cried so hard when I dropped you off at the airport.
That was the next day, but let's talk about that night still.
Yeah.
We were there at Fridays eating, and we're like, man, so I'm going back, you're going back. Like, what do we do? What do we? And we weren't in love.
Mm-mm.
We just really liked each other and felt like we could be a couple.
Yeah.
And we're talking about 16 and a half years ago.
I can't believe I'm crying right now.
Um, yeah, because it was life-changing decisions.
It was really sad.
It was a life-changing decision for us. Like we sat right there, and by the way, when I went back home that summer, like, and I tried to reconcile with my ex-girlfriend, I knew she wasn't the one. I really enjoyed talking to you. You were the only one that whole summer that I'm like, man, I really enjoyed these conversations.
Yeah.
Out of all 4 or 5 of them, 6, 7, I don't know.
Just let it be noted, I won. That's it.
Yes, you were the one, and you're still the one. And I remember we sat there, and Danny Lee, y'all, told me to just stop calling her. Let's just throw in the towel. Let's not even try. Let's not even attempt this.
I just thought we'd only get hurt.
And I told you no. I was like, no.
Mhm.
Here's what we're gonna do. You're gonna go back to Indiana and pursue your dreams. I'm gonna go back to Florida and pursue my dreams. And we're just gonna stay in communication, keep talking. And if it's God's will, our paths will line up again. Guys, I know this sounds like some type of weird Bible story, but this is real, real life. We made a decision, and I said, you know what? I know what God put in my heart. I'm going to pursue that. I know God put something in your heart. Pursue that.
Yeah.
And if it's God's will, He's the one that writes the story.
Yeah.
He'll line it up again. Too often, I see people trying to be God, people trying to write their own stories.
Very true.
And I'm not trying to get all spiritual, but we're spiritual beings. And I'm going to say this. One of my favorite scriptures, and it was my favorite scripture then, and it's still my favorite scripture now, is
Yeah.
Proverbs verse 3 or chapter 3, verse 5 and 6. And it says, trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways, acknowledge him and he will direct your path. And I knew that for sure that year. I was like, you know what? I'm not going to lean on my own understanding.
Yeah.
I'm not going to tell myself, well, here's how it makes sense to me. I said, I don't know why God is doing this. I don't know why I'm going left. I don't know why you're going right, but I know that we both are supposed to pursue what God put in our heart. And that's what we did.
Yep.
And in everything that we do, we're going to acknowledge him. So I remember saying, God, I'm going to acknowledge you in this. I'm going to put this in your hand. And it said, in all ways, he will direct your path. Or some translations say he'll make your path straight.
Yeah.
And that's what happened to us that year. When we sat there that night, I was like, we're going to still stay in conversation, stay in communication. And if this is not for us to work it out, and God don't want us to work it out, the phone calls will stop. It's not like we got to see each other at school.
Yeah, you were like, "It'll be really easy to break up from each other across the country."
I told her that. Yeah, I was like, yo, if it's not going to work out, just going to stop calling each other.
Mhm.
It's very simple. But the calls got stronger and stronger.
Yeah.
So,
So then I took you to that airport.
we hung out that night.
Yep.
Lots more kissing.
Babe, oh, yes.
Long
And
night,
then
3,
I
4 o'clock in the
took you
morning.
to the airport. I said goodbye to the boy.
I remember what I wore that day too.
You do?
I do remember what I wore that
What'd
day.
you wear?
Because you remember I cut my hair that summer.
Yes.
So I came back with a low cut.
Yes.
I was ready that season. I'm like, yo, I'm gonna come back with a low cut, all the waves, all that stuff. And I remember that day was I think a Saturday. You dropped me off at the airport, and we held each other for like a long minute. It was a fat minute.
I do remember that drive to the airport. And I
It was quiet.
remember, yeah. And I remember pulling over after I dropped you off and I just cried
Yeah,
because I just really felt like I'll never see you again. And like, it sounds weird at this point because nowadays, college students just jump on flights like it's nothing. But
Yeah,
our families weren't paying for us to fly back and forth to see each other. Like,
sure.
that wasn't a thing of like, hey, mom, can you send me to Florida to see my boyfriend? Like, that
Yeah.
wasn't like,
And this is before FaceTime.
yeah,
This was we didn't see each other on a phone in
right.
real time.
Yeah.
It was you could send me a really tiny, short, pixelated video.
So pixelated, you could barely see it. I think you tried to do that 1 or 2 times, and I was like, "I literally can't see anything."
Can't see it.
Um,
She would send me pictures, and I'm just like, "Hey, is this you or is this a little Puerto Rican
it
person?"
was so bad, but I truly
Which
felt
side note,
like
people are thinking like, "Oh my gosh, he's so racist."
oh,
Relax, chill, relax.
well, it's because I catfished you.
She did
We
catfish me.
dated in the season where there was tanning beds. Every white girl was in a tanning bed, and if you weren't in a tanning bed, you were getting spray tanned, and actually most of the time, white girls were doing both.
Yeah.
So I catfished him
Yo, when I
because I was
first
so tanned then.
Yo, when I first met Danny Lee, her best friend at that time was a Puerto Rican.
Uh-huh.
And so Dan Lee, I thought was Puerto Rican too, because Dan Lee, every friend that she hangs out with, she start talking like them. So when she was hanging out with a black, she's like, "Ooh, girl, nah." It's just like, why are you talking like that? And then she started hanging out with a Spanish friend. "Ooh, mamacita, oh mira."
Pero
I'm like, I'm just like, "Ooh, fuego." I'm just like, what? Like now you like
uh,
salsa?
I
It's
like it
salsa.
all,
I'm
to
like,
be honest with you. I just
and so
love cultures.
So that's how I met her. I met her with her best friends. I was like, oh. So I was like, all right, mama, little mama, all that stuff. Matter of fact, that was the season after we started hanging out, like that summertime, that late springtime where I started calling you like
Little
little mama.
mama.
And I remember one time, like I called Danny Lee little mama. So I'm rewinding and she was liking it so much. And she was like, "You keep calling that, I might have to marry you."
I sure did. And I didn't think it was like the lightest comment. Like it was like the flippest comment. Like, boy, if you keep coming, I'm gonna have to marry you. I
Man, you know you
married
was
you.
thinking about marrying me when you
I
said that.
was not. I liked you,
I know
but
you was putting out a filler.
yeah. It is a ring by spring program. We were on the fast track.
It
No,
was
I'm
that
just joking.
spring. This is me rewinding, y'all. So make sure you guys go back to part one and watch and listen to how we met.
Okay, so you move away.
I move away,
I
went
moved
back.
back to Indiana,
You
started cosmetology school,
hmm
and we talked on the phone more and more and more and more
Yeah,
every
yeah.
night after 9 p.m.
So that Christmas, your grandma had a
Uh-huh.
trailer in Florida.
Yep.
So you and your family came down to Florida, West Coast Florida, where people go to pass away.
It's called
Um,
Heaven's Waiting Room.
yes, and I was like, bet. So we did see each other two times
Yep.
that year, summer while I was on that tour
Yep.
playing bass, and that Christmas season. And you guys, so that Christmas, she's in West Coast Florida and seeing her grandma. She's with her family, her mom, her dad, her brother. And I drove over to come see you.
Mhm.
I remember driving over to come see you.
You actually took me back to the east side with you
I did. So
to meet your
I
family.
borrowed my mentor's car.
Yep. That was the first time I met your family.
Yeah, I borrowed my mentor's car to drive over there to come pick you up, see your whole family. The crazy thing is, man, we're missing so much, man. Part one, we didn't even mention that time when you was graduating and I met your mom and your dad at
Oh,
graduation earlier that
yeah.
year,
There's so
right?
much.
It was so much. And like, I remember your dad finding out that I was a bass player. You know what I mean? It was so
Mhm.
funny. Like, so, bro, so that winter, I came to hang out with you and I went to drop you off. And I remember it was like after Christmas, the 2 days before New Year's Eve, like December
Mhm.
28th or 29th or
Right.
something like that. And we're hanging out and you told me you wanted to be my girlfriend.
Mhm.
And I was like, nah, next question. Nah, I'm playing.
No, you were not.
Next question. Oh, I was like, that's cool. Nah.
You actually probably did say that. You're so dry.
Yeah.
You have
I was,
such a lack of response
yeah.
in moments like that.
I think I was probably like, I want you to be too.
Yeah. So that's when we became official, even though we were
So
long distance.
December 2007 is when we became an official item.
And then February of 2008, you made my dreams come true.
Oh yeah, I surprised you. The next year I
Uh-huh.
surprised you for Valentine's Day. And I think your mom picked me up from the airport. She was
Yep.
in on it. And that's when she started crushing on me.
Yes. And I would be like, Tammy, you are married and he is here for me. She'd be like, but he's so cute and he's so funny.
That's funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do be hitting them
And
jokes.
then
I do be having them jokes.
that was the time you played with my dad's bass. And that was when he realized how good of a bass player you really were.
So then your dad started crushing on me. So then your dad started crushing on me.
Okay, so then that May is when I graduated
Yeah.
cosmetology school?
So honestly, that January, um, my church at the time, we were writing out like our
Oh, yeah.
self visions,
It
and
was
we
in
were writing out
January.
January '08. We were writing out like, what do we want God to do this year? What are some
Yeah.
things that we're believing for? What are some things that we're gonna claim? State your claim. Like my pastor at the time, which he was my pastor growing up through my teenage years. He was the one that I was like, I learned so much. I got filled with the Spirit of God. That was where I got the call to go into ministry.
Right.
Like that was my foundation, church and pastor. I owe him so much, man. I'm so grateful for him. And that year was the year that he was teaching us like how to write it down. That's where I first learned how to like write it down, write out the vision. And that January, I remember I didn't tell you till a long time after
Yeah.
that I wrote down your name was like, I want to know God if she is the one for me. I was so adamant because like I don't play with my relationship with God. And so to me, I'm like, God, if this is not you, I don't want it.
Yeah.
If it's you, I want it. So I
Yeah.
was like, God, I need to know if she's the one, let me know. Let me know. I didn't know till about I think maybe like March.
Yeah.
But Jane that was January. So I was praying for it. I
Mhm.
had it written down. Like I need to know, is Danny Lee the one? Is I had your name written down. February I came to surprise you
Yeah.
at your little cosmetology school. That was a good time hanging out with you and your family. It was sad to leave. Yo, actually, if you guys go on our Instagram, there's pictures of our first Valentine's Day together. That's
Mhm.
'08, 16 years ago. That
Woo.
was our first Valentine's Day together. So there's pictures. Go on our Instagram if you haven't followed already. It's on Facebook too as well, which is so cool. And then March or April is when I heard God tell me,
Mm.
she's the one. She's yours.
That's crazy. And you literally had a word from God about it. Mine wasn't the same, but I knew it's hard to describe, but I just knew there was something different about our relationship. Like I would almost describe it as this like peace
Yeah.
between us that it just felt right. And I know that's a bad description of it, but
Mm,
it just felt right. And that didn't mean that we didn't fight because we did.
sure.
We had arguments, we had disagreements. Imagine this is the beginning of Danny Lee and Pierre,
Yeah.
South Florida Haitian boy, and a country fed white girl from Indiana, realizing how different our cultures are, realizing how different our backgrounds are. Um, and so there were arguments and there were fights, but there was just something different
Yeah.
that it never became. Maybe we're not the right fit.
Yeah. There
Maybe
was,
we're not like that.
yeah.
Never came
We
into
were
our
Yeah, we
arguments.
were always pursuing each other while doing long distance and maintaining our relationship with God and what He's put in our heart.
Yeah.
And I think maybe this is a conversation for a whole nother day of like dating to marry,
Yeah, that's
like
true.
dating leading into marriage, because we were dating with the intention of looking for the person to
To
marry,
marry,
but
yeah.
we weren't trying to fit each other in that box. I think
Right.
a lot of people make the mistake is like once they find someone, they start dating someone and they're going to try to shape them to be the one that they marry.
Yeah.
We weren't doing that. We were just genuinely dating with the intention of hoping and pursuing that this is the person.
Right.
And so I remember when I just knew you were the one. And let's let this go on record for you guys who don't believe me to be an emotional person. I was the first one to tell Danny Lee that I love you.
And I was scared. And so I wrote back, I love you.
That's
Do you
messed
remember
up.
that
Yeah,
season?
you love me.
I was
Like, what's
I
LUV?
would only say ILUV because I did love him as a person, but I was so scared to say I
We
was
were, yeah,
in love with
and we were
you.
long distance. Y'all, man, if you can date someone long distance and tell them you love them over the phone, that right there is true love.
Yeah.
And I was the first one to tell you, I love you.
And it, and I think there's so much to say, so how did we know we were the ones? Like, you had a word from the Lord. I could tell that there was something different about our relationship. And then we both had mentors in our life that were saying, like, yes, yes, like this is the person. If you feel this, like they weren't saying, even as us being in the position of mentors now in our age group, right? We've
Right.
got some people that we mentor or we speak into, and like we would never say, "Yep, that's the person for you," or "No, that's not the person for you."
Yeah.
We would guide them in, "Hey, does this line up with what you see for your life? Hey, what do you think about these?" But we both had people, multiple people in our lives
Yeah.
encouraging our
Yeah.
relationship
Yeah.
and saying, "It does look like a godly relationship. It does seem like you guys are a good fit together. Your families are supportive
Yeah.
and love each other." Like and that was just another way of us knowing
Yeah.
that we were the
So
ones.
here we have a year distance from when we met each other, and a year later where we're like, I think she's the one. Several months later to like, I knew she's the one. Now, there's more to the story, right? The following year, there's so much more later on that year, God opened up doors
Yeah.
for you to move down to Florida.
Right.
But I remember, so that whole spring when we're over the phone, that whole summer, we're still over the phone.
Yeah.
There was something special about our connection.
It really was
Like,
different.
because we knew now we're dating the person we're gonna marry.
Yeah.
So my eyes and my thoughts were no longer at that point on other girls. So
Yeah. It
that's how
changed.
I
Right.
pivoted in my mind. To me,
Yeah.
I'm like, my options are closed now. Even though you're my girlfriend at the time,
Yeah.
and I didn't play around and call her my wifey. I tell young guys that all the time, and I
So
tell young
true.
girls that all the time, the ones that we're mentoring. I'm like, hey, don't call him your hubby. He's not your hubby. Don't call her your wifey. She's not your wifey. Yeah, but I want to marry that person. Absolutely. But the wife
Save
and
that.
husband, man, that is a covenant between God.
Yeah.
It's a calling. When you get anointed to say, hey, now this person is your better half, your other person that you were called together for better or for worse, right? In sickness and in health.
Right.
So to me, I'm like, I want to preserve that and keep that sacred until that moment
Absolutely.
you officially become my wife before God,
Yeah.
not just before the law. Not just we can go to the court and sign some papers. Yeah, according legally, we're married. But there's a difference getting married before the Lord.
Yeah.
And that was special to me that summer where like, yo, she's my girlfriend and I love her
Yeah.
and she's the one. So from that moment on, now we started cultivating, fostering everything about our relationship, even though we were still long distance,
Yep.
right? We managed all that. And several months later, God opened up doors for our paths. Y'all, this is crazy to line up again. Like literally, it was like God was like, okay, now you guys are ready. Doors opened up. You moved down to Florida.
Yep.
You had a place to stay. You had a job waiting for you. And crazy thing is what? You was 21?
21. Starting a new career as a hairstylist.
It's wild.
It's wild.
That's wild. But people say, yo, how did you guys do that? I remember now, here I am. This is wild. Here I am a whole year later, 2008, fall time, flying out to Kokomo, Indiana to drive you down
Mhm.
to West Palm Beach, Florida.
So all in all, you really just went to Bible college to find me.
I did.
It was
I did.
like you were only there for one semester,
Yeah.
and it was only so that our paths would cross. And I 100% believe that.
Yeah. And here we are all these years later. I still love you. You're still the one. I choose to love you because love, the feeling of
Yeah.
lust, the feeling of goo goo gaga cloud nine, that stuff fades away.
It comes and
At this
goes.
point, it's a choice. And
Yeah.
I choose to say, you're the one that I'm going to continue to love. I still remember those days when we first met. I still remember the days where I'm just like, yo, she's the one.
Yeah.
And you're still the one. We went through some tough times where I'm like, man, I don't think she the one anymore. I don't think she the one anymore.
It's so true.
This one right here, Lord, just like Adam said to God, it's the woman, God, that you gave me. See all these, you guys see all these grays kicking in my beard right now?
The
I'm
sparkles are
like,
coming
Lord, nah, it's the
through.
glory of God right there. It's the
Oh,
sparkles,
okay.
right? But you're the one.
You're the
You're the one
one.
that I love. It's crazy, man.
It's crazy. It's been such a wild ride, and I'm so grateful that we get to share this story. And there's so much more we could dive into. We could dive into the me living in an RV parked in
Bruh.
somebody's backyard with the little baby cockroaches, not
Yeah.
the big ones, but the
So
little ones.
there's some
There's so
topics, right? There's some
much.
topics of like things to do while dating,
Yep.
dating to marry. There's another conversation to have of like dating the one.
Yeah.
Right? There's differences. Like when you're just dating, knowing that you're looking for the one, and there's when you're dating
And you
the
know they're the
one.
one.
Because there's different stuff that we had to
For
apply, merging
sure.
families, merging, my friends, all those type of things. But listen, y'all, we love you guys. Thank you for jumping in on all these conversations. Again, we want to know if these conversations are bringing you value. If you wouldn't mind on YouTube hitting that like button. If you wouldn't mind, if this is Apple, if this is Google, if it's Spotify, just writing a little review. It really helps us, and honestly, it really helps the algorithm and all the analytics. It helps push it out to other people that will find value from these conversations too as well. So we love you guys. We want to encourage you guys to keep on digging. Life gets better when relationships do. Relationships with God, relationships with others, and relationships with yourself. Let's dig.
Let's dig.